that famous, but they are actually colleagues and students here in Kiron that inspire me every day with their enthusiasm and their great work. And with that, I want to start. We are every year at World Refugee Day having an event like this together with partners. And I think it's important on every year, 20th of June, but not only on this one day each year, to look at the situation of displaced persons in the world, more than 100 million, and how people are forced to flee their homes due to wars, environmental crisis, persecution, and many other reasons. How their journey is going, that is very often very dangerous and very hard, with often connected with years of hardship, and also how they can not only arrive at host societies, but and in host countries, but how refugees can actually become part and participate in their host societies. So today on this year's World Refugee Day, having these very general notions in mind, and knowing that many of you that are now listening to me are refugees, or are people who have worked with refugees, are people who are supporting refugees in their communities, at their workplace, etc. Let's all remember one simple truth: no one wants to become a refugee. I was just remembering British Somali poet Warsan Shire and the beginning of her poem Home. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. And I find this so important, not only on this day, because the discourse on flight and migration has become very controversial in a lot of society, if not to say toxic. Having that in mind, I am convinced that everyone here wants to be part of a different discussion, not of the discussion about migration being and flight being a problem, but about it being part of the discussion how we can make things work, how we can make things better, not only for refugees, but also for host societies. And one crucial factor to this, one crucial factor to integration, or to participation, or as I would say in German, Teilhabe in our societies, is access to employment. For many refugees, it's not easy to find stable and qualified employment in their host countries that is actually fitting to their qualifications, to their knowledge, to their skills, and therefore to gain economic independence and rebuild their lives. This is true especially for women, if you look at any statistics. And I've learned that, at least for the German context, two huge barriers are: first, language. Many job offers are still looking for minimum wage employees with perfect German language skills in Germany, for example. And I think we all know that this is not realistic anymore, and that companies will have to change their mindset and their structures in order to accommodate people with lower German skills, use on-the-job trainings, use further language trainings, accompanying, like going alongside with jobs and so on. So there is a change that needs to happen in the economic sector and the corporate sector. And the second huge barrier, at least for the German context, that I'm most familiar with, is recognition of qualifications and upskilling opportunities. I can only imagine how hard and discouraging it must feel to a doctor, to a chemist, to a lawyer, to arrive somewhere in Europe, for example in Germany, and experience that it might take them years to get their degrees recognized and to be able to work in their jobs. In the meantime, people often work in minimum wage jobs just to earn a living and not depend on social security. And this is where administration needs to urgently change. How will we otherwise be able to tackle the full-blown labor shortage that we already see in many industrialized countries if we don't improve refugees and migrants' access to qualified jobs? This is why we at Kiron, as an EdTech NGO, are dedicating our efforts to supporting refugees and migrants accessing education and the labor market. So, for example, we provide upskilling opportunities language classes, we share contacts, we share internship opportunities, mentoring opportunities. We provide access to corporate networks for many of our learners in our blended programs. And also many of these offers are open for the learners on our global Kiron campus that are more than 20,000 people at any given time that are learning with our courses. And that is a huge potential of refugee talent that we're working with and that we want to provide further support for together with our partners and with our donors. And this is why today we also want to specifically focus on this issue. How do we provide pathways to potential? How do we build these pathways to build in order to build sustainable futures for and with refugees? Therefore, I'm super glad and very honored to welcome our wonderful speakers, Anila Noor, Lars Thies, and Jardine Paterson, who will be sharing their perspectives on shaping and generating dignified employment opportunities for refugees, and therefore also for opening new opportunities for collaboration and growth and for contributing to our societies that offer safety and opportunities for all. So how will our societies, our companies and organizations have to change in order to make this transformation happen? What can be done by every one of us, by people in HR teams, by people in the administration, in different positions and roles? This is important for us at Kiron, to find partners, to find allies, like, for example, LinkedIn that we're collaborating with in this event today. Thank you. Not to complain, partners that are not complaining and just writing policy papers, but that want to do something today and in the future, and that commit to being part of the change. So thank you all for joining, for contributing to today's event, and especially to our esteemed speakers that I will hand over to now. Many thanks to LinkedIn for this wonderful collaboration. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and we're also very happy to join and to listen to contributions of our speakers today. So now we're giving the word to Anila Noor, who is the Managing Director of the New Women Connectors, as well as EU Commission Expert Group on Diversity and Inclusion, and who will share her insights and share her experiences with us today.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone, wherever you are listening to me. Today is a very important day for all of us as a person from displacement, and we are really feeling celebration. And this is the best thing I can share, how we can enhance our confidence and how we can celebrate with saying that, yes, we all are person from the displacement, and how different diversity is needed to understanding the problem we are facing. So congratulations all of you to having this discussion, and I'm super happy and honored and feeling very excited how we're going to talk about gender relationship when it's come to labor market. Being a woman born and raised up in country like South Asia and becoming a newcomer in Europe, we face so much challenge. Until today, I remember my first job, which I started, was in in a factory, and I'm just feeling, as you can feel, it's very hard to expect that Europe can give you unlimited opportunities and giving you so much barriers. You, as a newcomer coming from the developing country, we just think maybe these barriers, economical inclusion, limited opportunity, exist only in developing countries. No, it's not true. As a newcomer in Europe, you can also feel so many barriers. And that's why I'm talking about how we can open up the spaces, open up the opportunities, and understand cultural barriers when we are talking about this kind of a problem in Europe. Considering that as a newcomer, as a woman of color, in Europe, there are so much multicultural barriers multi-understanding, and how there is traditional values of expecting as a newcomer to get the whole burden on their shoulder to learn, and how they can fit in this existing limited opportunity. That's why I really want to highlight to everyone who are listening to me how being a newcomer, don't give up. It's very important. Keep your skill high, your confidence high, and to talk about it. Do not feel shy to say no. Do not feel less confident or less skilled if you are saying, no, this is job not for me. I can do this and this. And especially as a woman, we really need to step up and to be a vocal about your dream job and not to give up. Understand there are so many in Europe, especially there are so many opportunity. You can even having learning. You can learn about digital tools. You can learn about how these different dynamics can help you in upcoming months. You will see there are so many digital opportunities are coming up. So it's very important you go and navigate those opportunities, because those opportunities are for you. Because if we say, no, this is not for us, you are already giving up on the first stage. So it's very important, keep taking those opportunities and add on. Also, how I really want to request to all the employers who are there to understand the barrier of language, language of speaking a host country's language, language of understanding new market language, and also how we can have to understand to bridge these languages differences. Because if we are not making the policy how we can give a more opportunities by having a job and the language, it's create more difficulties for the women, especially how they can take these opportunities. In my recent research which I was doing with World Trade Organization, we figured it out. Those languages barriers push women especially to stay near to their homes, and they are not even able to go leaving their home, their family, their children, and go to have extra courses for their language. So this is very important. When you are having job opportunities, give them also opportunity for the learning languages. It's very important. That's why at New Women Connector, we are advocating for systematic change, not only for the integration, but also how we can understand the inclusion. Inclusion is the key. So we can share what's newcomers' role and what's our as a host community's role to enhance the opportunity. This is very important. We are at New Women Connectors advocating not only for meaningful participation, but also how we can create more access to the opportunity, how we can define what is a problem according to the migrant and refugee, especially for women, by having intersectional lens, and how we can understand those problems to give them independence, give them the opportunity to select, and how they can become more understanding, how they can co-create the solution, because that will be create more impact. So it's very important we can create this thing, because in Europe, I really want to highlight also in my experience, there's a trend of descaling. There's a trend of not to giving a high profile job, but a limited profile jobs. So how we can also think about it, and how we can indicate that this is not going to help in the long run. So how we can come up with the decent jobs, with the more independence of choices, and how we can create more multiple choices, especially for women. Because women in every culture is a key of the family, key of the society. So it's very important how we can give them more opportunities. Being a woman-led organization, we felt there's a difficulty of understanding the mechanism, the systematic barriers, the challenges. So we need to understand to give the visibility to women-led solution, especially for the displacement lived experience. They need to be part of this kind of planning and this kind of solution. So we really need to create multiple options, not only a few options. So this is very important. If you want economic inclusion of women, we need to give more trainings, more time, and more resources. Otherwise, it's very easy for me as a person of color to become a chef, to become a delivery person, to become a receptionist with a limited low profile job. but it will be difficult for us to become a doctor, to become a policy advisor, to become a president. It's very important we keep up pushing and do not give more burden to the woman, because women in Europe already have so much burden on her shoulder. They're trying to keep the balance of their own home country's culture and also host country expectation. And this balance is not helping women. They are getting more mental health issues. They are getting more dependency on their own environment when they are becoming in the move pathway. So it's very important, if we want independence, these safe pathways should be inclusive. They should be more resources, and they should be understanding the problem of women. Thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Anila. It was really inspiring, and indeed, we really need to support more women, and we should think about different challenges refugee women are coming through. And now we give the word to Lars Thies from LinkedIn, who is a social impact manager in DACH region and also in Latin America, and who will share his insights on sustainable economic inclusion through the workforce.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Kiron for organizing this event, for allowing me to speak here, and most importantly, for all the incredible work that you do to support refugees, not only in Germany, but around the world with your Kiron campus. So echoing a few things that Wenke has already mentioned, I want to highlight first, like, how crucial it is for refugees to access the labor market and basically to find a job for creating sustainable futures for them. I think a job is not just, I mean, the main thing, of course, is generating an income, but it's not just about that. I think it's also about social connections that you can forge through the workplace. It's creating a sense of contributing to the society, to the society that they live in. It forms the sort of basis to help others. I know a story of one of the Kiron students that took part in the mentoring program that we organized with Kiron. He was a coachee at first, but then after he found a job, he acted as a coach himself. So these are incredible stories. And also, I think this is allowed through having a job and having this sort of base covered. And sort of apart from the benefits for the refugees themselves, I think there are obvious benefits for host societies, especially Germany, but many others as well. I stick to the German example. We are already facing a huge talent shortage in Germany. There are, I think, 140,000 IT roles unfilled. The situation is similar in hospitality, in healthcare, in education, and the list goes on. And the baby boomer generation is only starting to retire, so the situation will get worse in the in the coming years. And from a purely economic perspective, I think we need all hands or talents on deck now. And other industrialized and aging societies face similar challenges. At the same time, you think, well, this is an easy win-win situation for all. It's often the case that skills of refugees are underutilized. We know that refugees bring a lot of hard and soft skills that are valued by employers. However, as Wenke shared, sort of getting those skills recognized was actually one of the biggest barriers to the access to the labor market, maybe after outright restrictions on their economic activities. And then also, sort of apart from the recognition piece, also employers, I think, still put too much premium on formal qualifications, previous job titles, previous work experience, that often refugees might not bring in the form that employers would like. because they come from a different country, from a different background. Degrees might not be easily sort of translatable or transferable, and so on. The same with job titles. An economist in Ukraine is something different than an economist in Germany, for example, something that I learned in the last couple of months. And sort of on the positive side, I think refugees bring really many valuable skills, especially I would say in a time where AI is going to impact many jobs. It's going to change many jobs. It's going to sort of change the skills that are needed to perform certain jobs. And the key is to look at transferable skills. And one of them, I think, is adaptability. And of course, refugees, through their journey, through their biography, bring this in space. They have to adapt to a new country, to a new culture. And the second thing is a learning mindset. Again, something that refugees bring out of their experience. I think they have to learn a new language. They have to learn new social codes. They have to learn new ways of like navigating whatever bureaucracies, basically life in general, in their host countries. So I think, and these are both of these skills are not something that you learn at a university or at other educational institutions. You have to basically either bring it already or learn it and develop it in life. So I think those key transferable skills are really a great plus for employers looking at refugee talent. On top of that, research shows that refugees are especially loyal and motivated employees with very high retention rates compared to average employees. So how to bring all this together? I think, from my opinion, the focus on skills in hiring and application processes is key in general. So basically, as a recruiter, as an employer, as a hiring manager, really trying to hone down on what are the exact skills that are needed for a certain role, rather than what are the qualifications that candidates usually bring that we hire for those roles, or can we find candidates who have the same job title before? So really focusing on skills, I think, is the first element. This also benefits employers, by the way. LinkedIn research showed that employers in Germany can increase the talent pools that they can choose from up to 9 times in countries like Germany, when they really focus on skills. And this opens up opportunity not just for refugees, but also for many other so far underrepresented groups in the labor market. Then the second key point is, I think, creating opportunities to train on the job and learn the language at the same time. I think there are many great examples of employers. We just published a case study with Cisco, who has sort of set up a training program and internship program for 20 refugees. And then sort of they could upskill in IT. They could sort of also get familiar with the work culture at Cisco in Germany, and then after that, they were either employed by Cisco or by other companies. So I think that's also key from an employer side. And finally, I'm glad that we're working with Kiron on a similar project. I think it's to create job orientation and mentoring programs for refugees to facilitate and to give orientation about sort of what is needed in applications, what are the best ways to highlight your skills, how to navigate maybe certain gaps in the CV that because of the displacement background and so on, and also on the employer side to get in contact with refugees to facilitate a better understanding of their journey, of sort of why their CV looks like it looks, and also to basically break down barriers and forge like human connections. I think this will open up a lot of doors and opportunities for refugees and employers at the same time.
Thank you very much, Lars. It's really important, I guess, for as employers, as also different CSR managers and also our students to learn more about economic opportunities and employment opportunities for refugees, especially as students of Kiron are prepared to enter the job market, thanks to our cooperation with Paterson, and of course as well. And now we are passing the word to Jardine Paterson, who is a founder of Concat Group, which includes Concat Tech and Concat Recruit. And she will share her experiences with us.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today. My name is Laura. I'm from the UK, but I have spent the last 7 years living across the Middle East, mainly in Lebanon. I started running a coding academy that trained marginalized talent to become full stack web developers in Lebanon. And from that, I started Concat in 2021. Basically, we are a web development and design company, essentially. We employ refugee and female developers and designers. We work with clients all over the world who need branding, logos, SEO, advertising, websites, pitch decks, everything along the lines of kind of digital assets. I think what's great to discuss here in terms of our story is we saw how many amazingly talented refugees and women there were living in very marginalized communities, specifically in Lebanon at the time. Specifically, I started Concat with a Palestinian girl and a Syrian guy who were living in Lebanon as refugees and couldn't basically access full-time employment because of legal laws or political or, cultural situations there. So we started Concat together to really provide opportunity to give them sustainable employment, moving them from, earning $200-300 every now and then to a solid monthly salary that is an average of $1,500 now for all of our team. So what started as a very small project, we started with 1 or 2 clients. We now have 150 clients across 12 different countries. We have a full-time team of 10. And I think through this, what I've really realized is access to opportunity is just not there if you are a refugee. It's not the talent. It's not that you haven't had an education. Maybe it hasn't been a traditional educational path, but most of our team, they've learned coding on the go. They've learned it, in their bedrooms, in a refugee camp, or in a host community somewhere. And I think what's super exciting about the tech sector is you don't have to have gone to university to be a great developer. And I actually think all the skills that Lars and Wenke were mentioning, such as like being loyal and super motivated to work. My developers work harder than anyone I've ever worked with in my life. I have to make them take holiday. I've never had to do that in any company I've worked otherwise. And I think there's so much around that is positive. And I think for us, we have faced many challenges. Clients, saying, we don't want to work with you. There's a war in Lebanon. There's a war in Palestine. How do we know your team is safe? How do they know they're reliable? And actually, we've adapted as a company to solve all of these problems. We now have UPSs for the team, so they have 24-hour access to internet and electricity. All of these barriers that our initial clients were worried about, we found solutions to them, because that's the only way that Concat can survive. And I think now we're in a stronger position than ever. You know, we've survived wars, we survived the Beirut explosion, we survived COVID. And it's not about that. And I think the point of that is, even if you are a refugee, there are so many barriers that you will face at every point of your life. And you just have to surround yourselves by people and communities that can help you find solutions. Because I really believe there is a solution to many of the challenges that you face. I think digital skills is a huge market for where refugees and marginalized communities can be given opportunities. I launched Concat Recruit this year, which is a recruitment company basically focusing on matching marginalized developers from the Middle East to companies around the world. So we launched, and within 24 hours, we had 600 applications from developers from Lebanon, Palestine, and Egypt. We got an AI testing tool, so we vetted them down to 200. So 200 of those developers are now ready for employment. They are from junior, mid, senior, CTOs, all stacks, all levels. Now, the problem that we face is a lot of corporates and companies around the world don't know about the talent that exists amongst refugee communities. So what we're on a mission of doing is trying to integrate these developers, or even get them in front of the employers, you know, to showcase their talent, showcase their skills. Maybe their CV has got gaps. Maybe they haven't got a bachelor's or a master's, but they have come top in our back-end Java test. You know what I mean? So what we're really working on is advocating for the talent. It's not just amongst refugees. We have a big focus on women, but also host communities as well, because I think a big aspect of that is bringing everyone together and not always, you know, discriminating against refugees as themselves. It's about bringing them together in teams to work in host communities as well. We have developers now in our team in Europe, in the Middle East, one that is in France, who is Palestinian. And I think what's really great about what we're doing is we started as a real grassroots solution, right? I did not think this was where Concat was going to go and where it would end, and we would have the success that we've had. We're now generating over £500,000 a year in revenue. We're bootstrapped, and we just started with a really small idea of trying to give 2 developers in Lebanon employment. So I think the story here goes that if you it can help find a solution to one of the problems that refugees face, such as employment, really go with it. If you have an idea, find someone who you can help. I mean, I went to art school. I had no idea about anything to do with business. I never lived in the Middle East, couldn't speak Arabic. And I've started this with the help of so many incredible refugees around me, who we've now built this amazing community. And I think I was told it was never going to work, I've been asked probably more than 10 times where my boss is, because I'm a woman. And I think this never, now I laugh, but at the time I was absolutely furious. My developers have been told that they're useless, that they can't even write one line of code. We've sort of faced all types of scrutiny. But I think that's because we're challenging norms, right? We're challenging companies around what is your hiring policies? How can we integrate? How can we help you hire more diverse tech talent? And what's really interesting to see is the clients that we work with, they initially might be like, oh, I've never worked with a refugee, or I've never met a refugee before. And I say, okay, come have a call with us, you know, no pressure either way. Come meet the team, let's speak about your project. And I would say 9 out of 10 times I get a message, normally from the founder after, saying, oh my God, sign us up. We want to work with you now. Please send us more developers. So I think this initial exposure, but also representation. Like, I'm here speaking on behalf of Concat because it's my company, but I'm not speaking on behalf of refugees. We need to put them at the forefront. Their stories are what can change their profiles and their characters, and exposing them and telling their stories and telling their journeys, and also sharing their talent. I think that's what it really comes down to. It shouldn't matter where you are from or who you are or your gender or your nationality, actually, either, except we need more women in tech. But generally, it really shouldn't matter. And the tech sector is one of the sectors and industries that we can really work on making a difference in, because a lot of companies do hire remote talent. So I think that is a real industry where we can focus on. And I think if you work in a corporate or you meet somebody who works in a corporate, ask them about their hiring policies, like ask them about the diversity of their teams. Doesn't always need to be a challenge or like a debate. I think it's just a really great thing to ask about and inquire and explore opportunities and differences, and showcase companies and individuals that are doing amazing work or amazing refugees that you know, because together that is really how we make the change, whether it's in Europe or in the Middle East, wherever it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was really inspiring, and definitely the role of everyone here is not to take the advantage or kind of showcase ourselves, but showcase the opportunities which we should create, and we are working on together, and to showcase talents of our students who are incredible and have great stories also. And now I'm passing the word to Manuela, who is the managing director of Kiron Digital Solutions and Match Talent, and she will be moderating the panel discussion.
Thank you, Katja, and a warm thank from my side as well. I learned so much in the last half an hour about the topic we are all passionate about. That were very inspiring contribution. And I already changed a lot of the question I had to prepare, because you gave me such a beautiful, fresh input to go with. So I would like to start with Anila, because I particularly was impressed by the strong shift of narrative that was implied in your talk. I found it very inspiring to push people to really go for their dream jobs and not just settle for feeling the lack of or the labor shortage in Germany or in other countries in Europe, which is very much the strongest narrative right now when we try to talk about inclusion, but shifting the narrative and like also advocate for a dignified and self-determined position in society, which I find very inspiring and really a powerful shift. Can you talk a little bit more maybe about your personal experience, and how did you find the confidence and the strength to, even though you had probably to face a lot of barriers there, to advocate for you and for your specific position in society, and not having to just adjust to whatever is required by you, from you?
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. Well, I will be very honest, because as I mentioned earlier, I born and raised up in a conservative religious environment in South Asia. And I always say I was feminist the day I was born, because I born as a fourth girl child. And in South Asian culture, if you are fourth girl child, is mean you already unwanted, you already not been a child in your family. But I was so fortunate, my mother especially, she never gave up, because she was never have a chance to go to school. So she always gave us this confidence and opportunity and importance of education. So I think she's my role model and a motivator who really pushed me to go for your dreams. Regardless of so many challenges, even in South Asian culture, still when I moved to Europe, I think that was my fire I had from the beginning. But it's become like a fire, more fire when I said, not here again, right? So we are becoming burden, no voice to say, no right to say, no opinion to say. Everyone is talking about refugees and no one talking up with refugees. And especially as a woman of color, like we always giving a list to follow up, list to do things, right? So I think this is the thing. And I will say we really need to create a visibility to new role models. We really need to maybe say no to so many things, which is, have expectation of. If I give you a few example, in Europe, they say, okay, we need to respect the culture, which is very true. But again, on the name of culture acceptance, we do not want to let women alone, especially migrant women. There are so many migrant women who've been left alone, and they are not giving more chance to give more open space, and dependency is more onto their men. So that's why it's very important how we can not leave them alone, and how we can accept, yes, culture doesn't mean we can't intervene and we can't give the more right information. So this is very important. And yeah, I think the motivation comes in, but also there are so many restrictions, being a person on the move, and especially women on the move. We have a family, we have children, we have culture expectation, religious barriers, but also it's easy to give up because it's very difficult to move on. You will not find so many sport system. You have so much competition in the environment, especially in Europe. So it's very important how we can create a light-minded network, friends, and also understand we have a limitation, but how we can speed up, how we can show our visibility and contribution to acknowledge like you are human being and you are worthy to gain more success in your life.
Thank you so much, Anila. I also believe that it's very inspiring because I think long term, this is actually the recipe for success, right? Because you cannot just push people to feel the lack of specific professional position in one direction and expect that this generates a sustainable, reliable, a long-term, happy and fulfilling workplace. And so that's also a recipe for disaster if we just treat people coming to Europe just to fill up our labor shortage. But I think we need to reshape the discourse around what is everyone's call, and also in Europe, right? So also for the people already here, also for the European, then the people that were born here to have this shift of mindset, and with the help of AI was mentioned already by Lars as a big force that will reshape the landscape of our job market, also make space for job as a self-determining enterprise. To this, Lars, maybe I go over to you. I got a question for you as well, because yeah, you talked a lot of what I think a couple of years ago we were defined, we used to call the 21st century skills, right? So meta skills, basically skills that go over a specific definition of what you should do in your workplace, but try to look a little bit more of what are your personality trait, your interpersonal skills, communication skill set, your intercultural skills, all things that are not necessarily super bound to what you studied or your experience in life, but you can extract from your work of life, your experience, and rebrand as your personal profile when looking for a job. My question for you would be exactly this: how do we rebrand talent and also make company aware of this a possibility of look at potential talents through this new lens? How do we push for this new narrative in workplaces? What can we do there?
Oh, very, very good question. I I think first is like creating awareness among employers that, you know, this is like, these are key skills of the future, because at the moment, nobody knows really how AI will impact jobs. Not, I mean, in this case, even mostly white collar jobs, I would say. So we don't know sort of how this will be used in the future by employers in companies, and also how the technology will progress, how fast, and sort of what direction it will take. Excuse me. So the first is to like make the case to employers, say, you know, you really need these skills, like adaptability, like a learning mindset, like everything that involves like working with other people will also will be the hardest thing to automate. So also things like communication, empathy will also be important skills. And then I think the next thing, and maybe we're not there yet, is like to develop processes, hiring processes to really test for these specific skills. I mean, how do you really test in a very limited, like in a very limited way? That is usually now you have like an application, you have like maybe an hour interview or 2-hour interviews, how to actually assess if a candidate brings these transferable skills. I think, and that's why I mentioned like creating these learning on the job opportunities. Maybe it's not like a year-long internship program. Maybe it's just like creating models where people can work whatever, a day or two in a company, and you can like get a more complete picture of how they're interacting with other people, how they're approaching challenges, and so on. So I think there's a lot to develop there, and to improve the way we hire people and assess skills at the moment. I hope that's answered your question.
Sorry, one more time. Very well. Thank you so much. It's exactly what I was thinking of, so to say. How do we put the stress on, as well, penetrating corporate culture in a way that they realize as well that the known replaceable skills are what matters. So exactly what you described, so to say that communication skill, intercultural skills, and interpersonal skills are the one that probably we will put more emphasis on in the future when hiring people. And this transition is very important and very challenging at the same time. And that leads me to the question I had for Laura, who talked a lot about the challenges of basically getting a shot with many of their clients and companies they work with, because they seem to push back sometimes because they had no exposure or experience to working with refugees. And I would like to ask you, Laura, can you talk a little bit more about your strategies, your Trojan horse, so to say, to basically get into conversation with these companies and convince them that it is a good idea to give a shot to people, even though they don't have a classical background, and maybe also talk about both the failures and the success, to give us tips on how to move forward with this. Basically, reshaping this course.
Yeah. So I found at the beginning, I was like overselling our services and everything so much. Like I'd meet a client and I'd be like, honestly, it's amazing. Like try it. And I realized at some point, if you are not ready to like change a mindset or get exposure to working with more kind of diverse teams and people, it's very hard to convince somebody. So what I started doing instead was just saying, listen, my team are amazing. This is the proof. Try it or not. You know, I'm not gonna sit and now sell you my business and the team, because it's kind of your loss if you're not working with us, basically. And I really reframed it in my mind, and then also to the team of being like, listen, guys, you know, we can only push so much if a client wants to work with us or doesn't. They used to get super upset if a client didn't work with us, and they'd think it would be because of who the team are and those kind of things. And actually, most of the time when we inquired further, it would be like lack of budget, or they stopped a hiring freeze. You know what I mean? I think it's very easy to sometimes assume, yeah, if you're not 100% confident in a situation, that it's something to do with who we are. But actually, so as a result, I kind of stopped selling it. And then actually I found it was so ironic that it actually works better. And then people are like, oh, it's easier to convince them. I think a lot of it is also through word of mouth. Like it's in some countries, and at the moment, hiring refugees is becoming like a trend of a topic, which is incredible. But what needs to happen is companies leading the way. So we often get one client being like, oh, hey, we've heard from our client that you've done an amazing job with them. We also are looking to hire more diverse talent. Please, can we chat? And that I find can be a lot more convincing, rather than me being like, hey, my team's amazing. You know what I mean? So that exposure, again, in terms of reference and word of mouth, has been really successful for us. I think also in terms of the developers, what I've started saying to our clients now is, listen, try it for a month, meet them, do the round of interviews as you would normally. And we've already vetted them for cultural fit and personality, as well as technical tests. And that effort from us actually gives a lot of reassurance then to the developers. So it takes more time from our side, but actually it means that we can really guarantee talent on paper, not just me selling them to the companies. So I think that's really worked. For sure, there's problems and highs and lows within that, as there is with hiring anyone, right? It's whether you hire a refugee or someone, you know, like me, there's challenges either way, and you're not always going to hire the right person straight away. So I think it's very easy to be like, oh, we need to be extra careful when we're hiring a refugee. What's the data or security around hiring a refugee? And I'm like, hun, it's the same as hiring me remotely. Who knows if I'm downloading your data on my own computer? It doesn't matter whether I'm a refugee or not. So I think it's actually giving a bit of realistic expectations around that, and just being like, you're asking me this question because it's a refugee, but ultimately, even if I was hiring someone in London, you still have to ask yourself the same questions. And a lot of the situations that I get asked stuff, which is normally around reliability, internet connection, data, etc.
That is great, because that's great to hear, because it shows that a lot of the barriers, they are just biased, like some biases that we have around what level of complexity it would bring into your life hiring a refugee. But I think in generally the good news is that probably people in companies will get now skilled up around the whole topic of hiring remotely anyway, because of how the landscape is changing around the topic of working remotely. And so that's a very good news for refugees as well. If there is not an essential difference between hiring a person remotely that has not a refugee background and one that has, so that is a very good news, means that the path will get simplified for everyone out there. I'm glad to hear that. So one other question I had in mind all time, just because you both, Laura and Anila, you talked, I feel, about the problem through the feminist lens. So I would love to ask you to elaborate a little bit more your experience specifically talking about now refugee women in leadership or just women in leadership working with refugees. How do you think it's still affecting what you do and the results that you can produce? And what do you think we could do to move forward? And last but not least, did you see progress in the last couple of years? Just maybe to end on a positive note, maybe.
You want to start, Anila, or I go?
As you like, I don't mind.
You go.
Okay. Well, I need more hours and days to talk about this issue. It is issue, actually, unfortunately. And why it is issue still a problem or barrier of not only understanding, but acceptance. Overall, working in the policy domain globally, regionally, and advocating for systematic change. So many institutions, UN agencies, INGOs, and multiple, cities level initiative, government officials, and so many things, they are talking about gender or women's issues as a separate thing. We are not realizing till today, it's not only about women, it's about the social dynamic change we are advocating for social justice, we are advocating for equity and equality. So unfortunately, these initiatives, the promises or a process, they think about as a second thought when we are talking about women's issue, gender issues, or feminist issues. So this is a main problem for us. As a feminist leaders, we are not advocating only for women. I always say why we, as soon as we hear woman or gender, we only think is we are talking about gender-based violence, we are talking about limited resources, easy health, excess of health, which is the important, heart of the issue. But the thing is that there are so many things, root causes. If we don't talk about this, we are regenerating the exploitation, regenerating the vulnerabilities of women, and women become more vulnerable. I always say we are leaders, resilient. I'm not a beneficiary. I'm not a vulnerable. The system is making us vulnerable. The system is making us weak. So this is very important, how we can come up out from our comfort zone and accept, like, our normalization of gender issue is the main becoming a barrier. So as I said, I can talk about hours and days about this issue, but yes, there is so many problem, and the system we are living in is based on capitalist and patriarchal approaches and colonial approaches. So maybe in upcoming months or year we can talk about this issue, but it is generating from those ingredients which is not working for women. So we really need a new system if we are really want equity and equality based on social justice.
Thank you for emphasizing the structural aspect of the problem. I think that's very overlooked very much, and it's something that, as you said, connects many different levels of our life and society. Now we structured our life together on work and relational aspect, but also, penetrating the private sphere as well, as we know. So it's very important to look at this as a global and structural problem. Laura, I give you the word now.
Yeah, so I think now what I find really terrifying, particularly about the tech sector, is that only 27% of global roles in tech are filled by women. So now we're basically building the future of the world, right? With AI and everything launching now. And I'm like, if that is only being built with 27% input by women, that is going to lead to another total, generation, future world, whatever, where we are a marginalized gender. And I think within that gives me a real sense of urgency now of why we need more women in tech to help build a better future, build better products, and build more equal solutions. That is, again, then that's another thing in terms of refugees and other marginalized communities, but women specifically. I think I consult a lot of companies that are hiring and struggling to find women, and a lot of that is actually about what they say on the job description and exactly what we talked about earlier, like the language around that. So mentioning things like remote work, flexible working hours, a lot of things around childcare or like flexibility within that. So many companies still don't think about that. and the language around that in their job descriptions. I've got so much abuse over the years of only ever hiring female developers. I got messages being like, we call them fee fails in our company because all the female developers we've hired have been so useless. And I was like, this is now, this is 2024. And I find those kind of attitudes really, really super terrifying. And I think what that really comes from is a lack of, so many things, but exposure, education, conversations around that. And I think that's why it's really important and great that we have these conversations now, that really help spread awareness of the biases around that. But I think ending on a positive note, I'm definitely seeing so much change. We're organizing this huge Women in Tech event in the Middle East, road trip, and we've had like 1,000 women in tech sign up, right? And the interest and the excitement and the enthusiasm. I was also just at London Tech Week, so many incredible women at the top of big corporates, speaking, really, leading the way in terms of conversations around this. And I think that for me was absolutely amazing. It was the first time I really felt like, wow, this is really making changes. And these women are really there to help other women, have these conversations and encourage and be role models, which I think is also another big part of the conversation.
Thanks a lot, Laura. Yes, I also feel, and as you said before, right, that tech is probably the pioneer sector in terms of eliminating the barriers to access, because it's per definition lower, so to say, better said, a less academic and more skill-oriented sector to start from. My next question is also around another shift, and it's for Lars and Laura. I would like you to have a dialogue around how you feel that the discourse of labor shortage that you mentioned also earlier in your talk, Lars, is slowly shifting also the political priority and the perception of migration labor force in Europe. We touched upon this with Anila before as well. But yes, the demographic crisis in Europe is also a reality. So it's going to be less space, I feel, for ideological thinking around who we want to work where, but we just have to change our framework and our discourse around that, because there is no way out of this crisis without becoming an inclusive society. So maybe if you can share a little bit, both of you, Laura and Lars, of your experience around lack of professional figures and how this urgency now will probably help us changing the discourse.
I've just got one thing about this. My main point is I actually don't think it's about bringing all of the talent always to Europe. I think a lot of what's happening in the Middle East is because the talent leaves their own countries in search of other opportunities. So while I think that solves some of the problems in terms of shortages, and there's also already so many talented people within Europe that either need to be trained or upskilled to fit a shortage, whether it's low-collar jobs or tech jobs, whatever it is. But I think also this narrative around, right, we've got a shortage in Germany, we've been looking, let's say, for a year, we can't find the right developer. Let's open up these policies to hire maybe remotely, or whether that's, even if that's to a European country, right, another European country. For example, in Ukraine now, there's a lot of refugee talent there in tech. So I think it's about really looking at that as well, not always looking at this angle of being like, right, we need somebody who's within the country that we're in, because also it's expensive to do the visas and sponsorships, and it's super, super difficult. Where we can actually have scalable change, I think, is really looking at opening up the hiring policies still within the same region, not necessarily, from Germany, let's say, to Lebanon, but really opening those policies up to hiring people in different countries, and not always looking at this need to bring more people over. I think is a solution that needs to be talked about more in this conversation.
Thanks, Laura. Lars, please.
Yeah, totally agree. And so I have two basically unrelated points. So one would be, I really like also the idea of that now organizations like International Organization for Migration or UNHCR are promoting around alternative pathways, especially for refugees, like creating employment-based pathways for refugees to go to places like Canada or the UK, or hopefully Germany soon as well, without first going through the whole refugee and resettlement system. So that's one thing. And the other thing, although I think really sort of not everybody has heard the message that we really need, that we have these talent shortages and that we really need talent also from outside of Germany, just speaking for Germany at the moment, not only to fill the jobs, but basically to keep the whole our whole social security and pension system running. And while that's one part of the truth, I really liked your point, Anila, as well, to not make it only about this, about that, and sort of not reducing it or sort of to this utility for, I don't know, for the German labor market or for labor markets in general. So I think the question is really how to find the right balance between making people aware that actually refugees are an opportunity for the German society, but also still maintaining a view that, you know, for other reasons, for humanitarian reasons, also we need to provide access to Germany and to the German labor market. If that makes any sense, sorry.
It does a lot, and yeah, it's again connected to the next point. You read my mind, everyone in the room. Yes, because I wanted to go back to the initial point of this conversation, Anila's point that talent basically is the flourishing, the driving force of a flourishing society, and we shouldn't basically just settle for what it's needed, but we should really investigate and trying to stand up for ourselves and for what we think we can contribute to our society. And now I got a last question for you two, Anila and Lars, around exactly this topic and the topic of belonging that is connected to it. Because Lars, you mentioned in your talk that is a fundamental ingredient, so to say, of a future prosperous society, that we basically build a sense of belonging and contribution to the society for the people coming. And I think this is intimately connected to creating the right space for people to express themselves and to bring their diversity, not just as a burden now that we have to adjust to, or they have to adjust to, but really articulated as a way of adding and enriching the way we work, the way we live together. So if you could express your thoughts around the connection between belonging and sense of belonging and the freedom of bringing our own talents and expressing ourselves in a ideal future setting. Both of you, Lars and Anila, thanks.
Lars, please go ahead.
Right, I just wanted to give the word to you because it's such a difficult question, I would say. So first I would say, yeah, definitely totally agree that it's so important to create this sense of belonging, like around how to do this. I can maybe share a little bit about sort of what we're doing at LinkedIn. We have these things that we call employee resource groups. We have an employee resource group for the LGBTQ plus community. We have a resource group for women, for families, and sort of basically these groups are there and they have like resources to sort of connect with each other across LinkedIn. So there we have like local chapters in Germany, but we also have regional chapters in EMEA and global chapters of these employee resource groups. But it's also about educating others, other employees of LinkedIn around sort of the specific, I don't know, the specific challenges these groups face, the maybe also the value that specific groups bring to the workplace or to the culture in general. So I think that's I think one way how to do this, and I think really at LinkedIn it works quite well. Of course, there's still lots of things to improve, but it's just one example how to do it.
Yeah. For me, belonging is the top level. So it's like welcoming environment, integration, inclusion, and then belonging come up. For us, whenever we are talking about belonging, is way too complex and difficult, because as a person from the lived experience, we are having multiple identities, and this belonging, how our host society accepting us. I always say I'm very Dutch. I'm very direct, as you can see. I'm on time, but I still have difficulty speaking Dutch language. So when I go to my friends, Dutch friends, they always push this pressure me. Oh, come on, Anila, it's been like 10 years and you're still not speaking Dutch. So it's like again become like a barrier for me. So it's hard how we can say belonging, but I think that's why we are advocating for change in our perspective to create more a broader framework, and how we can change the narrative to create our inclusive homes. So we can feel this is our home, this is our responsibility, and we own with the affiliation of the belonging. So it's very important. I think the conversation we are having from last few years is very important, but unfortunately, being living in Europe, we are feeling is also becoming difficult, because as a newcomer, based on our color skin, we face more racism, discrimination, and we can't deny, and we shouldn't deny this element that Europe is really declined in when it's come to belonging element. But I'm still hopeful we can talk about this thing, and if we have even the right to speak about it, I think we are on the right track. If we lost these speaking elements to identify the gaps and identify the barriers, then maybe we are really losing our hope. But I think we are not. So it's good we are talking about the belonging and to work towards how we can create our, a mutual understanding when we are working together, inclusive societies.
Great answer, you both, Anila and Lars. Thank you so much. I think we can close now the round, because we have a lot of questions as well in the chat from our students that I would like to read to you. Some of them are questions, some of them are comments. I'm just gonna read them and then we can maybe throw a little discussion around that. Zara, for example, says, thank you for this eye-opening session. My impression from the session and similar programs I have attended so far is that besides the language of the host country, we need to learn IT skills, as if that is the new language with big letters. But for people like me with no IT background, it is a bit sad. I am writing my master's thesis in British and North American cultural studies, and I feel I have no future, especially now with all the AI talk. I gave up my career in my country and came to Germany because I had to, but I was hoping to start a new one. However, it seems more and more difficult. Does anyone in the room want to comment on the panel? Or give tips maybe, or...
This makes me really sad, this message. I think it's because I probably focus a lot on tech because I work in tech. I think from my point of view, that is 100% not the case. I think on a global scale, tech is the way that we can change the narrative faster because of this remote work culture. So I think it's a really important industry to focus on the conversations. But I really, really, really don't think it's the only way. I think it's a hot topic now for sure, especially with AI. But I mean, there's still thousands of industries that need and would love to have you, I'm sure. So don't just focus on the tech narrative and conversations. I really want to stress that maybe we focused on the tech sector now, but that's definitely not the case.
Thanks for picking this up, Laura. Wenke also wants to respond. And Lars.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to what Laura just said. I think the tech sector is so interesting also for us as in Kiron, providing, for example, upskilling programs in this field, because especially if we're talking, for example, about the German context, it's not a regulated profession. So it is easy to provide education, get people the necessary certificates, the work experience, so that they can easily access the job market in tech. However, we all know, and Lars, you were talking about this before, there is so much talent and labor shortage in so many fields. Also in many qualified fields. I'm not just talking about nursing, but I'm also talking about like academic jobs, for example, teachers or kindergarten teachers, for example. And these are all jobs that that rely on qualified talent and where we still have a long way to go, I would say. And we're working on that to actually get like build pathways for refugees and migrants into these professions. The problem is they are a bigger challenge because they are regulated, and in Germany it's even worse because there's 16 federal states that have their own regulations on these specific professions. And so this is something that where I would say this is a challenge for us that we're working on as an NGO who wants to build pathways into the labor market for refugees. It's also a challenge for the administration to actually work on regulations and getting people into these jobs. And we need this, and we also need qualified people with academic backgrounds in social sciences, in all kinds of spheres for academia, because in the end, all these jobs will keep our societies going. And I think that's the important part that we need to focus on. And I hope that at least this can give you like a spark of hope that it's not all about tech, but tech is just a pioneering field that we can also learn from for other professions.
Thank you, Wenke. Lars, please.
Yeah, I also wanted to give a bit of hope there because I had a flashback to when I finished university. I had a very generalist background in political science, and then looking for a job, I thought, why didn't I study like engineering or IT or like a profession that people are actually looking for, employers are actually looking for. So I'm I'm still here. I made it. So I think there's hope, and I think you mentioned that you study British and North American cultural studies. As I observed, like in a very corporate background, or context, there's so much need for communication, for clear communication, for translating between like different departments and different teams. And I think these are all things that you can probably do with your with your, at least with your academic background. So just want to give some encouragement. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there that will fit your profile.
Thanks a lot, Lars, for this other helpful comment. I'll join the train of the useless study because I also studied philosophy back then, and I had the same questions and the same doubts about my background when I joined. And first of all, as everybody said already in the room, there is a lot of other very important profession and profiles, so to say. But also even in tech, there is a huge need for people that understand complexity to, as Lars was saying, just translate this complexity, create communication between people. And so I worked a lot with tech team in my career, and I found that humanities are an amazing tool to just articulate, if you have a goal or a design opportunity, you need people that have a good understanding of language and communication to bring your work forward. So in tech and outside of tech, we need definitely people that have a different background as well. I hope this, this gives you the energy and the hope you were looking for. I'm gonna go to the next question because we have a lot of questions. I hope we're gonna make it to address everyone's questions in the session. This is not a question, this is a comment. I'm going to read it anyway. I believe we should focus on the countries that do not officially allow refugees to work and study, such as Malaysia. Even if we improve our skills and knowledge, there are no legally recognized job opportunities or schools for our children. Painful comment as well. That I think maybe Laura, you can maybe try to give an answer with your remote working policy.
Yeah. So we've had this a bit in some of the countries where some of our team live, and that's why we really created CONCAP as a remote model, because then it's kind of irrespective of wherever you are in the world, you can access employment. I think this is where the remote work exactly is amazing. I think at least it can hopefully help provide some opportunities in the short term, whilst policies hopefully get sort of changed around the lack of rights for refugees. I think it's very tricky to think of the remote work landscape as like solely tech and I don't have the skill set. What do I do about that? I think within that, there's actually a lot of jobs now that are opening up, like assistants, admin assistants, data analysts. We're seeing this as one of the biggest demands now for companies that are remote, looking for remote workers. So I think that is sadly, is a big opportunity in terms of remote work. But yeah, as you say, finding employment in these countries where refugee rights are restricted is super tricky. And I think we can talk hours about the benefits of not having those systems in place, but reality is they are there. So I would really suggest looking into remote opportunities, definitely, and trainings around that of how to work remotely and different mindsets within that. That would be my advice.
Thank you, Laura. And hopefully also there is something we can do for you on Kiron campus. Check out our offers. All our program are remotely doable, and digital. So yeah, there is another point that we touched upon already, I think, as a comment to Anila's speech. Everybody is talking about refugees, but they are not talking with them. That is a very high priority topic. In Europe, people are judging refugees with EU standards. They do not have an idea about the background of refugees. Do you want to take this, Anila?
Yes, sure. No, indeed, as I said in my opening remarks as well, As a refugee-led organization initiative, we are advocating for meaningful participation and inclusion, and to say we not only have a seat on the table to share our story, but we can make and cook the policies, right? We can only cook your food, but we can also cook the policy. And that's why we have been engaged in Global Refugee Forum, which is part of Global Refugee Compact, where we are not only bringing our voices, our stories, but to reflect the gaps which we hear from the Indonesia, Malaysia, Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, in Congo, Uganda, Rwanda, in Turkey. There are so many refugees, our partners whom we are giving the visibility to, so they can share their problems by themselves instead of we put a report or some kind of statistics. We really want to say why it's a failure for human barriers. So we need to understand that. And we really try to say how we can even normalize this. It's not like a refugees only coming from the African countries or from South Asia or from India. Anyone can become refugee, right? Like especially nowadays we have a climate a crisis on everyone, and we don't know, from Netherlands we have to move, right, to become a displaced person. So you never know. So this is very important for us, how we are talking about not only ticking the box, but understanding the problem. Is about identity, is about to access to the rights, access to the opportunities, or how policies makers rule regulation in as Lars also mentioned about the legal pathways. When we are talking about the Global Refugee Forum, there's so many pledge has been made. There are whole system where government officials, INGOs are coming together to create more opportunities. But again, if we are refugees, voices are not there. Again, we are creating our own expectation of ideas about the solution, and it will be end up in the failure. So it's very important to be part of the solution as a co-designing, co-developing, and investment. We as a refugee-led organization really need partnership, co-designing, and the resources. Otherwise, again, we are expecting refugees to work voluntarily, give their voice voluntarily, share their story for research or something. But again, then refugee becoming our more a kind of a project for all the people. So I always say my life as a person from the displacement, my life from the entering to till the day I die is become a different parts of the projects from different organization. So I'm very open about it and criticizing this approach. If we are not involved in the designing, we are just reproducing the exploitation, and we are creating more vulnerabilities.
Thank you very much, Anila. That's super important point. And yes, I think that is there's definitely a problem when programs are designed for people that are not involved in the design process themselves in general. That's problem. That's one of the reasons why diversity should be everywhere. And you mentioned now a very a point that impacts very intensely your life and life of a lot of refugees, and that's the biggest scale we can think of. But even in the smaller scale we can think of, in product design, we need women to design products that are meant for women, and we need people with disabilities to be involved in the conversation around access, and so on. So the diversity and the problem that lack of diversity generates in everyone's life are extended to everyone, and especially refugees are one of the most affected categories, I would say, when it comes to programs designed for them and not by them. So thank you so much for your contribution. Next question would be around there's a student's question that is in the second year in Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering in a French uni. And as a uni student, he is asking, what advice would you give regarding things to do outside the uni, building connection, networking, etc.?
Use LinkedIn. The best thing ever. I'm not even joking. I say that always. Connect with anyone you meet, build a community around you, follow up with people, research on LinkedIn about who's who, where they're working, what the latest news is. I think so many people don't know how to use it. Maybe Lars, you can talk on that. But use it to your advantage because it really helps, and everybody on there is accessible. So find people that you want to speak to, try to find a mentor. It's literally a database for anybody in your industry, right? So really, really use that. Make your profile look good, set it up so it looks professional. That's what I would say. And it really, really, really works.
Thanks so much, Laura. This was not planned. So no, I totally agree. Just to add, yeah, also use LinkedIn and also other ways to network in a strategic way. Think about like what are the companies that you would like to work for? What are the roles that you would like to work in, and build your network out strategically. Of course, using LinkedIn, but there are also many other opportunities. Networking in person is also great. Attending like industry events and just start talking to people is great. And use also when you're then on the job hunt, use also like I would encourage you to use your network as well, and like reach out to people that you know that work in a company that you're applying for. Like get the latest, I don't know, get a sense of what is the culture at the company, like what do they value in their employees, what are they looking for in their interview processes, and so on. These are all things that, you know, your professional network can do for you, and you can build it through LinkedIn, but also, of course, through other channels.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add to like all this super important advice that Lars and Laura have already given. I think one of the most daunting issues as a university student, I do kind of still remember, is actually like, how do I build that network? Like I'm still at uni, like my network consists of university students practically. And I think like, so like some of the like easy stuff is really like getting started on platforms like LinkedIn. Another thing I would always encourage is to look for internships, even like during your university studies, not just do like the necessary internships that many programs already have you do, but really also think about like what would you just want to learn. And sometimes internships are also an opportunity to learn what you don't want to do, like to like use it to build your experience, to build your network in the places that are interesting for you, but then also yeah, use it to try to find out what's maybe also not the field you want to go into. And every of these opportunities where you get into contact with people in a company that you're intern in can be a starting point for building your network. And yeah, sometimes just go to public events of companies, for example, where they present something that is interesting. Startup chats, like it starts like with these small steps, although sometimes they don't feel that easy, but just try it out.
Thanks a lot, all three of you. I think you got very good tips. There is another question coming up on the struggles refugee faced, and especially having certification recognized. This person is writing about despite having a Kiron campus certification, is facing barrier accessing university training programs and this is limiting his opportunities. Is asking, how can we advocate for greater recognition of refugee issued certifications and create more inclusive pathways to education and employment in Uganda specifically? Let's get work together to empower refugees youth like me to reach their full potential.
I'll maybe just get the conversation started. I think this has been an issue that Kiron has worked on since its beginning, and like the first thing that I have to, or I want to admit that it's not easy, especially getting access to universities and getting universities to recognize online learning degrees. And this is something that we've been actively advocating for since we started our work. And we will continue to do so. However, as like our reach does not span to all universities worldwide, so we have like it's something that I would be super happy to follow up, because we are also talking to NGOs and like contacts in Uganda, maybe to see like where there might be some avenues. So please maybe write us a message to Kiron, and that we can see how we can follow up specifically. But I would also say that especially in the tech fields, our experience has been that like providing certificates and degrees that are industry related sometimes gets us around the threshold. Like for example, like having data camp or other industry certified degrees that are not necessarily university certified, but that companies in the field actually do recognize. And I think that, for example, LinkedIn is also offering similar possibilities to join learning opportunities and bring in certificates on your LinkedIn CV that are sometimes a possibility to actually circumvent the sometimes very complicated university process, but get directly into industry and into jobs.
Amazing answer, Venke, because it connects perfectly with our next question, which is from Yolis, that says, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to first of all thank Kiron for the amazing opportunities that is providing to us refugees in terms of upskilling through the courses at Kiron campus and connecting us to the labor market through LinkedIn, for example. And as someone who recently graduated from bachelor degree in computer science from Uganda, again, where it is not easy to get jobs, I would also want to ask if you may help us to get internship and to help us enter smoothly the market job. Thank you. So yeah, I think you partially already answered this question as well, but that's what we're here for. If I may also suggest the two last questions, the people you could connect with each other and maybe see to help each other, since you're both based in Uganda and you both struggle with the same problem of entering the job market. Yeah, maybe you can write your email in and as an answer to your question and trying to connect to each other. It could be a nice opportunity to leverage this appointment. Next question. Thank you so much. First, my name is Moblit from Somalia. I was joining Kiron last year. Even we had a community engagement center focusing on technology for the youth. However, we had a problem with lack of financial and international exam like Duolingo and English test. There is some typos here, but I think the question is, how can we help the youth? Maybe Malit, could you maybe specify a little bit better the question? Is it about getting financial resources for your projects, for your technology center? Maybe you can add something to the question. I'm not sure I got it. So, and the next question, which I think it should be almost our maybe last or the one before the last question, because the time is also running out. Thank you so much. When I came to Germany, I wanted to study computer science, but because of the insufficient knowledge of German back then and the limitation of being a refugee, I couldn't. I like my major, which resonates with my interest and personality. I feel part of this society and I want to contribute to it, not just by the volunteer jobs that I am doing, but also through building a career. I have nothing against tech. I'm really interested and I hope I can achieve my goal by getting help also from the IT skills. Thanks again for the nice words. So that was rather a comment, but it's a very nice ending note, I would say, unless there is some last questions coming in. I see there are some thank yous, some email exchanges. Yes, the recording is going to be available at a later point. That's also a question in the chat. And one more question coming in. I'm writing to express my sincere gratitude to Kiron for the incredible opportunities you provide to refugees. The upskilling courses offered at Kiron campus and the job market connection facilitated through LinkedIn, for example, are invaluable resources. In light of this, I would like to humbly inquire about the possibility of expanding Kiron support to include internship opportunities. Internship would provide us with practical experience and a smoother transition in the workforce. Thank you so much for this question, Gamma. We are working on this. Indeed, we are working on building employers networks as well, and around the possibilities of also offering internship to our students at the end of their upskillings program. So yes, stay tuned, because this is coming and we will announce it to all our students. In general, we also organize after networking event with employers where you can pitch yourself for an internship to a potential employer. So yes, I think this is definitely something we want to offer in the near future. I'm gonna ask you now just to have maybe a final round of impression for you, Wenke, for our panelists before we close the day in our last 5 minutes of the event. Who feels like starting?
I can start.
Awesome, thanks.
Yes. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to us, and just be more optimistic and realistic. Don't give up your dream, as I said, but also I'm sharing the opportunity which we are bringing to all the refugee leaders among us, which you are. So please go check our website. It's a master program we just launched with the partnership with UNHCR. And I'm also requesting to our panelists, if you like to be a mentor, please do come. We have amazing refugee leaders who are taking the trainings of leadership, how they become a leaders, emerging advocate in enabling them to more influential in their life wherever they are, and which topic they want to take on, either it's IT or climate change. It's very important we can learn from each other and we can create this transformation of knowledge. So we all are change maker, but how we can give our experience hands-on to each other. So this is an amazing opportunity for us. So thank you so much. Keep connected and keep the fire inside you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anila. Would you like to go next, Laura?
Yeah, I think, thank you very much for posting this, Kiron. I hear so often about your amazing work, and so nice to hear from some of the students on the call. I think it's very important just to focus on this conversation just on Refugee Day, and I think actually it needs to be an ongoing narrative, especially amongst different groups of people. So thank you for leading the narrative on that today, and hopefully every day going forward. And yeah, we can create change much better together, not just in separate parties. So it's great to have conversations like this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Laura. Lars, you're up next.
Yeah, +1 to everything that has been said already. Also would end with a bit of hope, like even if the sort of process sometimes seems long and windy, I'm sure there will be opportunities at the end, and there are many smart and passionate people working on like making better systems and creating better access to labor markets, like the people from Kiron, for example, which is great. And also there are so many organizations out there that can help with different challenges. For example, the student that asked in France the question about the professional networks. There are so many mentorship programs out there. I know Kiron runs at least two, one in collaboration with us, but there are also many other organizations out there running mentorship programs, running also like internship or vocational training programs and so on. So I would also encourage everybody on the call to just look for these organizations, and there are many opportunities out there.
Thank you so much. And I am gonna now give the floor to Wenke for the closing words. But I would like as well to say thank you to you all, to the panelists, which gave amazing, brilliant insights into the topic we discussed today, and also to the students and all the people that joined us today in the conversation. Thank you so much. It was a beautiful way to honor what it means to be a refugee today, and also help us reshape the conversation around migration in Europe. Now the word to you, Wenke.
Thank you so much. And I want to join the thanks to all the speakers, to all the panelists. Thank you so much for your contributions, and also thanks everyone in the audience for listening and for bringing so many very important questions that were, like, you know, related to your needs, to your current situation, and that are also like giving us an idea, every one of us, what we can bring in and provide. And I just wanted to echo what you said, Laura. This is like, we are commemorating World Refugee Day today, but this conversation needs to happen on every day of the year. And I also feel that this is a good opportunity to show that we are all responsible for making this change and this transformation happen. And we should not put the burden on, like you said, Anila, just on refugees and refugee women themselves, but like work with me as a white person, work with my privilege, pay it forward, create opportunities for other people. And I think this is something that I felt in this panel here, that we are all working towards that. And so in the end, thank you so much. I'm sure we will stay in touch and in communication. And yeah, thank you all again. This was a very, very great opportunity, to talk about what can be done, not about the challenges that we face, but about how we work on paving the way across these challenges. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So we officially close on time. I'm shocked. And thank you everyone for coming. Please support us. Reach out to collaborate with us, donate, however you feel it's the right way for you to contribute to this change. And see you very soon, everyone.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much for joining, and thanks a lot to all the speakers. And you could find the QR code if you want to support Kiron, and otherwise you could also support us by just simply sharing your experience of this panel on the LinkedIn and talking about Kiron to your peers, and inviting other students to join it and benefit from Kiron offers. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, and enjoy the World Refugee Day because you're talented and beautiful.